The boss's daughter was boarding the private flight when something caught her eye, a fleeting glint of silver that seemed out of place in the soft, controlled lighting of the cabin. At first, she thought it was just another polished accessory, the kind flight attendants often wore to appear elegant and professional. But as she took her seat and the attendant turned slightly to assist another passenger, the object became unmistakably clear. Around the woman's neck hung a small silver pendant, worn close to the skin as if it carried personal meaning rather than decorative value. In that instant, the world seemed to tilt. Her heart skipped a beat so violently that she had to press her hand against her chest to steady her breathing. She knew that pendant. She had memorized every curve of it as a child, traced its edges with her fingers countless times, and cried herself to sleep clutching its twin long after it disappeared from their lives. It was identical to the one her family had lost years ago, the one her little sister had been wearing the day she vanished without a trace. For a moment, logic tried to intervene, whispering that such pendants were not unique, that coincidences happened every day. But her instinct screamed louder than reason ever could. She froze in her seat, unable to look away. Her hands trembled as memories rushed back with painful clarity, dragging her into a past she had tried desperately to bury. She remembered the sound of laughter echoing through their childhood home, her sister running down the hallway with that pendant bouncing against her chest, proud of the gift their mother had given her on her 6th birthday. It had been engraved on the back with a tiny symbol, something their mother used to say meant protection. That symbol, though hidden now, felt burned into her mind. The flight attendant moved gracefully down the aisle, her voice calm and reassuring as she greeted passengers and checked seat belts. Every step she took felt unbearably loud to the boss's daughter, as though the woman's presence alone was shaking the air around her. She tried to blink, to clear her vision, to convince herself she was imagining things. But the pendant remained, catching the light with every movement, a silent reminder of a wound that had never truly healed. Her throat tightened as she recalled the day everything changed. The chaos, the police sirens, the frantic search that stretched from days into months, and months into years. The unanswered questions had slowly destroyed her parents, turning their once warm home into a place filled with silence and guilt. As the eldest, she had learned to be strong, to take over responsibilities far beyond her age, but the ache of losing her sister had never faded. It had only hardened into something heavy and constant, something she carried with her everywhere. Now, sitting in a luxurious leather seat aboard a private aircraft owned by her father's company, she felt like that powerless child again. Her status, her wealth, her confidence meant nothing in the face of the fear clawing at her chest. She watched the flight attendant's face carefully, searching for familiarity. The shape of her eyes, the curve of her smile, the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear all felt unsettlingly familiar, like fragments of a memory trying to resurface. She told herself she was being ridiculous. Years had passed. Her sister would be a grown woman now, not the little girl frozen in her memories. And yet, the resemblance was there, subtle but undeniable. Her pulse quickened as she imagined impossible scenarios, each more terrifying and hopeful than the last. What if her sister had survived? What if she had been taken far away, raised by strangers, unaware of who she truly was? The thought made her dizzy. The engines began to hum as the aircraft prepared for departure, pulling her back into the present. She realized she was gripping the armrest so tightly that her fingers ached. Slowly, she forced herself to relax her hands, drawing in a deep breath that did little to calm her racing thoughts. She knew she couldn't ignore this. If there was even the smallest chance that the woman wearing that pendant was connected to her sister, she had to know the truth. As the plane taxied down the runway, she rehearsed what she might say. Every possible question sounded either too intrusive or too absurd. Asking directly about the pendant felt risky, yet dancing around the subject might lead nowhere. She feared the look she might receive, the polite confusion or discomfort of a stranger being confronted with such an emotional claim. Worse, she feared being wrong. The idea of reopening old wounds only to confirm that her hope was nothing more than coincidence terrified her. The seatbelt sign remained illuminated as the plane lifted into the air, the city below shrinking into a patchwork of lights. The boss's daughter barely noticed the ascent. Her attention never left the aisle, where the flight attendant continued her duties with practiced ease. She noticed how carefully the woman adjusted the pendant whenever it shifted, as if it were precious to her. That small gesture sent a shiver through her. People didn't protect meaningless jewelry like that. Her mind raced back to the night her sister disappeared. The pendant had been found nowhere. It had vanished along with her, fueling endless theories and suspicions. Seeing it now felt like a message from the past, a thread connecting two moments separated by years of pain and uncertainty. Tears threatened to spill over, and she bit her lip hard, refusing to cry in front of strangers. Minutes stretched into an eternity before the flight attendant approached her row to offer a drink. As she stood beside her, the pendant hung just inches away, close enough that the boss's daughter could almost reach out and touch it. She caught a faint reflection of herself in the polished surface, her own eyes wide with disbelief. The attendant smiled politely, unaware of the storm she had unleashed. The boss's daughter opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Her voice felt trapped somewhere deep inside, tangled with fear and hope. She accepted the drink with a nod, her hand shaking so badly that the liquid rippled inside the glass. The attendant didn't seem to notice, or perhaps she was simply too professional to comment. As the woman moved away, the boss's daughter leaned back in her seat, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure others could hear it. She knew this was no longer something she could ignore. That pendant was more than a coincidence. It was a question demanding an answer, a possibility she could no longer run from. Somewhere deep inside, a fragile spark of hope began to glow, lighting up the darkness she had lived with for so long. She stared out the window at the endless sky, silently promising herself that before this flight ended, she would find the courage to ask. Whatever the truth might be, she was ready to face it. The past had followed her onto this plane, and there was no turning back now. Trying to stay calm, she forced herself to breathe slowly, counting each inhale and exhale as she watched the flight attendant closely. She told herself not to stare, not to draw attention, yet her eyes followed the woman almost involuntarily. Every movement felt familiar in a way that made her chest ache. The gentle curve of the smile offered to passengers, the calm tone of voice used to reassure them, even the measured, graceful way she walked down the aisle stirred something deep inside her, something old and unresolved. The pendant swayed gently with each step the flight attendant took, catching the cabin lights in soft flashes. It felt as though it was calling out to her, pulling her attention back again and again no matter how hard she tried to look away. As the plane prepared for takeoff, the low hum of the engines filled the cabin, but inside her head, everything was loud and chaotic. Her heart beat faster with every passing second, and a strange pull tightened in her chest, a mixture of fear, hope, and disbelief. Could it really be her sister, believed to be gone forever, standing right in front of her? She shifted in her seat, adjusting her posture to appear composed, though her body felt anything but. Her fingers pressed into her palms as she tried to ground herself in the present. This was impossible, she told herself. Years had passed. Her sister would be older now, changed by time and experience. And yet, something about the flight attendant's presence felt undeniably familiar, as if pieces of a long-forgotten puzzle were suddenly sliding back into place. Her mind drifted back to childhood moments she had not allowed herself to revisit in years. She remembered sneaking into the kitchen late at night with her sister, whispering and laughing as they stole cookies from the jar. She remembered brushing her sister's hair in the mornings before school, listening to her chatter endlessly about dreams and plans that would never be realized. Those memories had faded at the edges, dulled by grief and time, but now they came rushing back with vivid clarity. The flight attendant paused near the cockpit, speaking briefly with another crew member. The boss's daughter watched the way she tilted her head slightly while listening, the small nod she gave before responding. It was a gesture she recognized instantly, one her sister used to make when she was trying to appear serious and grown up. A chill ran down her spine. Coincidence, she told herself again, desperately clinging to reason. There were countless people in the world. Surely similarities were inevitable. Still, her gaze lingered on the woman's face. The features were not identical to the little girl she remembered, yet there were echoes of her sister there. The shape of the eyes, the way her eyebrows lifted slightly when she smiled, the faint dimple that appeared on one cheek. It was as if time had taken her sister's face and reshaped it, smoothing some edges while sharpening others, but leaving the essence untouched. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing their imminent departure. Passengers adjusted their seats and fastened their seatbelts, the routine sounds of travel filling the cabin. To everyone else, this was just another flight, another moment in a busy schedule. To her, it felt like the moment her entire life was about to change. She wondered if the flight attendant sensed anything at all, if she felt the weight of being watched, or if she moved through her duties blissfully unaware. As the plane began to taxi, the Pendant swung a little more with the motion, resting briefly against the flight attendant's uniform before lifting again. The boss's daughter imagined reaching out, just for a second, brushing her fingers against the cool metal to confirm it was real. She imagined turning it over to see the back, to look for the tiny engraved symbol she remembered so clearly. The urge was so strong it made her breath catch. She closed her eyes for a moment, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions threatening to spill over. Fear whispered that she was wrong, that she was building hope on nothing more than coincidence and wishful thinking. Hope whispered back just as insistently, urging her not to ignore the signs placed so clearly in front of her. Her chest felt tight, as though her heart was struggling to contain everything she felt at once. The plane picked up speed, the pressure pushing her gently back into her seat as they lifted off the runway. Outside the window, the ground fell away, the world shrinking beneath them. Inside the cabin, applause broke out from a few passengers, but she barely noticed. Her attention was still fixed on the flight attendant, who was now seated nearby, strapping herself in for takeoff. From this angle, the resemblance felt even stronger. She studied the woman's profile, the line of her jaw, the way her lashes rested against her cheeks when she blinked slowly. There was a scar near her hairline, faint but visible. Her sister had once fallen from a tree as a child, earning a cut in that very same place. The memory hit her like a physical blow, and she had to swallow hard to keep herself from gasping out loud. Questions crowded her mind, each one more urgent than the last. If this really was her sister, how had she ended up here? Did she remember her past at all, or had it been erased by time and circumstance? Did she know where the pendant came from, or had it simply always been hers? The possibilities were endless, and each one carried its own pain and hope. She felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes and quickly blinked them away. This was not the time to lose control. She needed to be observant, careful, patient. Rushing into confrontation could scare the woman away or, worse, confirm that everything she was feeling was a mistake. She promised herself she would wait, watch, and gather courage. As the seatbelt sign turned off and the flight attendants resumed their duties, the woman stood and moved down the aisle again. This time, she paused briefly near the boss's daughter, offering a polite smile and asking if everything was comfortable. The sound of her voice sent another wave of emotion crashing through her. It was deeper than her sister's childish tone had been, shaped by adulthood, yet the cadence, the rhythm of speech, felt hauntingly familiar. Yes, she managed to reply, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and something passed between them, something unspoken. The flight attendant's smile faltered just slightly, as if she too felt a strange recognition she could not explain. Then she moved on, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. The boss's daughter sat back, her heart pounding harder than ever. That fleeting moment of eye contact had only deepened her certainty. This was not just imagination. Something connected them, something real and powerful. She stared at the pendant one last time as it disappeared down the aisle, feeling that strange pull in her chest tighten even more. She knew now that she could not leave this flight without seeking the truth. Whether it led to joy or heartbreak, she needed answers. For years, she had lived with silence and uncertainty, with questions that haunted her every waking moment. Now, fate had placed a possible answer directly in front of her, suspended miles above the ground. As the plane continued its smooth ascent through the clouds, she felt a quiet resolve settle within her. She would find the right moment. She would ask about the pendant. And whatever happened next, she would finally confront the mystery that had shaped her life for so long. After the plane leveled off and the cabin settled into a steady calm, she felt a quiet but powerful shift inside her. The seatbelt sign clicked off, the soft chime echoing through the cabin, and passengers relaxed into their seats, unaware that for her, this moment carried the weight of an entire lifetime. Her heart was still racing, but beneath the fear, something stronger had begun to rise. Courage. Not loud or dramatic, but steady, born from years of unanswered questions and silent suffering. She watched the flight attendant move down the aisle again, collecting empty glasses and checking on passengers. The pendant rested against the woman's chest, no longer swinging wildly, but still unmistakably there. Her hands grew cold, and she wiped them discreetly against her trousers, trying to steady herself. This was it. If she didn't speak now, she knew she might never forgive herself. As the flight attendant approached her row, she felt her throat tighten. For a brief second, she considered backing out, pretending nothing was wrong, letting the plane land and the moment pass forever. But the image of her sister as a child flashed before her eyes, smiling brightly, wearing that very pendant with pride. The memory pushed her forward. "Excuse me," she said softly. The flight attendant paused and turned toward her, offering a professional smile. "Yes, ma'am." Her voice trembled despite her best effort to control it. "I'm sorry if this sounds strange," she began, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear herself, "but your pendant, may I ask where it's from?" For a fraction of a second, the flight attendant didn't respond. Her smile faded, replaced by something unreadable. Slowly, almost unconsciously, her hand rose to the pendant, fingers closing around it protectively. When she looked up again, her face had gone pale, the color draining from her cheeks as if the question itself had struck her physically. She started, then stopped. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. The boss's daughter felt her chest tighten, fear rushing back in full force. She braced herself for dismissal, for confusion, for polite rejection. Instead, she saw the flight attendant's eyes glisten. Tears welled up suddenly, blurring her gaze as her grip on the pendant tightened. "Why are you asking about it?" the flight attendant whispered, her voice barely audible. The boss's daughter swallowed hard. "Because," she said, her own eyes burning now, "my little sister had one just like it. She disappeared many years ago." The flight attendant's breath hitched. Her shoulders stiffened, as if she were struggling to remain upright. For a long moment, she simply stared, her expression caught between fear and disbelief. Then, in a voice so quiet it was almost lost beneath the hum of the engines, she whispered a name. It was a name only their family knew. The sound of it seemed to stop time. The boss's daughter felt the world spin. Her vision blurred as tears spilled freely down her cheeks, her body trembling as though every barrier she had built over the years was collapsing at once. That name had not been spoken aloud outside their home in years. Hearing it now, from the lips of the woman standing before her, felt unreal, like a dream she might wake from at any moment. The flight attendant's composure finally broke. Tears streamed down her face as she pressed a hand over her mouth, her breathing uneven. "I didn't think, I never thought," she whispered, shaking her head as if trying to deny what was happening. Passengers nearby glanced over curiously, sensing the emotion but not understanding it. The flight attendant quickly gestured toward the empty galley area and spoke quietly. "Please," she said, her voice trembling, "can we talk somewhere private?" The boss's daughter nodded, barely able to stand as she followed her. Her legs felt weak, her entire body buzzing with shock and emotion. Inside the small galley, away from prying eyes, the truth began to pour out, slow at first, then unstoppable. The flight attendant spoke of fragmented memories, of growing up with gaps in her past she could never explain. She talked about foster homes, about being moved from place to place, about a woman who once told her that the pendant was the only thing found with her when she was brought in as a child. She had been told it was hers, that it was important, though no one ever explained why. I've worn it every day, she said through tears. I don't know why. It just felt like me. Like it was the only piece of myself I could hold on to. With shaking hands, she unclasped the chain and turned the pendant over. The boss's daughter leaned closer, her breath catching as she saw the tiny engraved symbol on the back. The same symbol their mother had etched with love all those years ago. There was no denying it now. They both broke down, years of loss and longing crashing over them at once. The boss's daughter wrapped her arms around the woman, holding her tightly as if afraid she might disappear again. The flight attendant clung to her in return, sobbing openly, her tears soaking into the fabric of her uniform. I thought no one was looking for me, she cried. I thought I was forgotten. You were never forgotten, the boss's daughter replied, her voice thick with emotion. Not for a single day. They spoke quietly for a long time, piecing together what little they could while the plane cruised thousands of feet above the ground. Each shared memory, each small detail, strengthened the bond forming between them, a bond that had never truly been broken, only buried beneath years of separation. Eventually, the flight attendant had to return to her duties, wiping her tears and steadying herself as best she could. Before she left, they exchanged a look filled with unspoken promises. This was only the beginning. There would be questions, reunions, explanations, and healing ahead. But for now, they had found each other. The boss's daughter returned to her seat, her heart aching yet lighter than it had been in years. She stared out the window at the endless sky, tears still slipping down her cheeks, but this time they were not only from pain. They were from relief, from gratitude, from a miracle she had never truly believed would happen. As the plane continued its journey, she knew that nothing would ever be the same again. A long-lost bond had been restored, and two lives shaped by loss were finally beginning to heal together.